No one's talking about it, but we discussed the 992 GT3 RS being too much for the average driver with Richard de Brinker from Porsche Specialist Workshop PR Technology. Let's have a look.
We have a wide customer base and a lot of clients and friends that run the late model GT3 cars on the track, and we look after a lot.
Wait, sorry, I forgot to tell you who the hell Richard is. Richard's been involved with many leading Porsche race teams in Australia and specialises in Porsche race car preparation, fabrication, engineering, PR technology, prepared RP968, the Pro Class World Time Attack Championship car that won 3 years in a row.
Traditionally, they're the pinnacle of Porsche track performance, and they do a fantastic job. And the new 992 GT3 RS is no exception. I mean, it's a fantastically fast car. Super adjustable, as the times show, in the hands of a talented driver, it performs fantastically. The trick is that any car that has significant amounts of aero take the average driver beyond their comfort zone very quickly. And I think you'll find that a lot of people will get into the 992 GT3 RS and drive the same speed as what they did with their 991 RS, because they've spent 30 or 40 years driving on the track and done a lot of track work, but never got their head around aero. You need to trust the aero, it takes a lot of time. So you've got this weapon that Porsche have produced that they now have to train the market to drive differently. The Radical is a good example. Wonderful track car, the little SR3s, SR8s. Fantastic track car, very fast, but they take a lot of training. Unless you're at the track 10, 12, 15 times a year with a trainer, you're never going to get anywhere near the potential of the car. So, yeah, the new 992 is a great track car, but it's almost too good. So few people are going to actually find the potential of the car.
Have you found customers getting out of it to get into something more non-aero focused?
Well, we have one customer that's got a McLaren that prefers that because it's a bit rawer. He's driven plenty of cars, and he says, look, I just haven't got the time to commit to that one car to make it go as well as it possibly can. To what end? He's not racing it in a series, he's not, there's no sheep stations at risk here. He's going out to have a bit of fun, and it's almost too much of a car. Wonderful car, you get a professional driver in it, or if you spend enough time training in it, it's fantastic. But the average person has never driven a car with significant amounts of aero, and that's where they push the boundaries.
If you were trying to find speed in the GT3 RS, wouldn't you just drive to the available grip?
Absolutely. So the available grip is when the car starts to do something that it's not meant to. So, if you take a race car to the track and you download after the session, you'll say to the driver, right, what was the braking like? What was the turn-in like? What was it like mid-corner? How early could you get on the throttle? Did you have to unwind too much? Was it understeering in? So you're talking about every stage of the corner. Now, if you've got a huge amount of available downforce, that person that's never driven the car before will never get to the point where it understeers or oversteers or does something. They don't know where that point is anymore. They've got to train themselves. And that's the problem. You're raising the bar by so much, you're training that person. They've got to go 10% faster before it gets to the understeer-oversteer phase, for instance. And that's not something that just comes naturally. Whereas you have a car that doesn't have any downforce, you understeer or oversteer a little bit, you don't lose aero. It doesn't bite you. So a lot of cars, when they start to have issues on the limit, aero cars will actually do some funny things as well. So they're not always easy to control. Other parts about the 992 GT3 RS, there's so many adjustments available to the driver, even with regard to shock absorbers. On the steering wheel you can adjust all the shock settings. I think people can end up getting lost pretty quickly. There'll be basic settings that you can set up and use, but there's plenty of knobs to play with. You could end up down a rabbit hole.
So in this case, more is not always better?
More is not always better. Ultimately it's faster, but is it more fun in the process? It's expensive, there's high risk. So risk versus reward, you wonder. The tyres are just that little bit bigger than the last model. So none of the tyres and wheels fit from the last one, and it's just natural progression. A decent set of tyres are very expensive for the car now, $5,000 plus. set of tyres that might last one day. It's, you know, it's playing with the big boys, isn't it? And ultimately that's what happens when you go fast. You're always going to spend more money, but it's a different animal to the 991 GT3 RS.
So in the past we've been talking about linear limits, and with these new aero cars the limits seem to increase as you go faster and activate.
Well, an aero car, if you're used to going through turn 1 at Eastern Creek, and say a non-aero car on slicks might do, you know, 190 kilometres an hour. On R specs you might do 175, 180 for a zero aero car. You know, you might have to go through at 210 in this car now. You've never done that before. Everything's approaching very fast. You know, your mind can only deal with so much, so your mental bucket becomes full and then you can't respond to what's happening properly. So you have to train your mind to be relaxed at those speeds and to get there before you can take advantage of it. So there's, you know, a very few percentage of the people out there are going to be able to jump in that car and go fast straight away.
How close is it to the GT3 Cup car in regards to aero?
Oh, look, aerodynamically it's much more sophisticated than the Cup car. You know, it's got movable aero. They don't have to be made particularly fantastic. They've all just got to be the same. So I guess the engineers can be let loose a little bit with something like the RS because they haven't got any rules to abide by. You know, you're not allowed movable aero on pretty much any FIA race car as far as I'm aware. You know, like that's getting into prototypes. So they stay clear of it because the FIA can't handicap it either. So most racing, all the GT classes are run by handicap. You know, it's like a horse. If you do well in a couple of races, they're going to give you penalties, and that can be either a ride height change, it could be a rev limit, it could be a weight limit, so you might be given 30 kilograms if you win a race. So the idea is that they're all equal, and whoever does the best job on the day wins, which is not really talked about very much, but that's how they work. Yeah. So you add movable aero into that, the race cars, yeah, it's impossible to mandate, control. Is it the ultimate track car? Yes, it's probably the fastest in its class, what it does, but not the easiest to achieve.
Well, that's it from me. This is the new t-shirt. The new issue, Duck&Whale 22, is coming. It's going to be amazing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.